Hello, this is Chala Dinkoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert, coming to you live. Well, you won't see this live, but it is being live streamed right now. And my guest for our next podcast, The Naked Marketing, is Joe Edelman. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you for having me, Chala. It's my pleasure.
I tell you, the branding is spectacular. And nobody can guess what you do by just looking at you. But why don't you tell us what you do for a living?
So I am a photographer. My business card says that I shoot people with a camera, of course, but I've been in this business for pretty much my whole life. So at this point in my career, I don't do as much client work as I used to, but I have the really good fortune of being able to teach new and upcoming photographers. And so my mission statement is helping photographers to develop a better understanding of the hows and whys behind making consistently great photographs. I found that there was a need for, I hate to say it, but some good old school education in the photography world. We have such amazing tech available to us today, but it's not helping a lot of people, unfortunately. So I take a slightly different approach. I go at it in a slightly different manner. And it's really my goal is to see people succeed. Photographers spend a lot of money on gear, a lot of money on gadgets. And like any other creative, they have big dreams. I want to see people achieve those dreams.
Aw. Now, do you help like professional photographers, or is it more like entrepreneurs like me who are trying to do their own marketing?
All of the above, which is kind of what makes it fun for me. I have an audience and a following that includes literally beginners that have maybe just been shooting for a few months, but they've got big dreams for what they want to be able to do. I work with a lot of advanced amateurs who are in the process of starting to formulate business plans and ideas to turn pro and pay their bills with their gear. I work especially on marketing techniques I'm a bit of a marketing nerd. So I work a lot with marketing techniques for existing photographers who are finding that they're kind of hitting a wall with their business and not being able to grow their business the way they want. And I do a lot of consulting with small companies, entrepreneurs, especially when it comes to Instagram marketing and kind of branding photography, so that they're able to, in their relaxed schedules that we know every entrepreneur has, able to kind of up their photography game and really present themselves in a better way.
For sure. Now, I imagine that when the smartphones came out, that the industry was like obliterated. What happened? What do you think?
Well, so I'm a little bit old school. Parts of the industry were obliterated in the sense that what smartphones did is they kind of cut out the bottom of the camera market. So it did hurt camera companies. Every one of the camera manufacturers is struggling a little bit because one of their biggest profit categories were the consumer cameras. You know, the small little pocket cameras you can put in your purse or carry in your pocket. And those cameras are gone now. There's very few of them on the market.
Nobody knows what they are.
Right. We have smartphones. We don't need them. As far as working professionals, you know, I'm sorry to say, and this is going to sound like I'm giving you two different answers, but on one hand, I think that all of the advancements we have in camera technology with smartphones, with more expensive cameras, are amazing because it has made photography more accessible to really anybody, because anybody with a phone is a photographer. What has happened, though, which is where the perception comes in, that it's really damaged the photography industry in terms of photographers. And it's just a perception. In fact, it's a misperception. We have more people who have been bitten by the bug, who honestly, they're being a bit lazy. They would love to be a professional photographer, but they're not really putting in the legwork to build the foundational skills. And they're not really doing the research to find out what to take to run a business, but they want to be there. And then you have photographers who have kind of done those steps, but they're a little bit lazy. They don't want to have to work hard to find the right clients, because we all know it's about the right clients. It's not about how many clients, it's getting the right clients. And so they kind of complain, they whine. It's like, oh, everybody wants to be a photographer and everybody wants to make money. Well, it's great that everybody wants to do that, but we all know, just like any other business, not everybody is going to succeed. The people that take the right steps and put in the hard work, they're going to succeed. So it really hasn't had an impact in terms of the number of working professional photographers who are successful, it's still a very healthy business, and there's still a very substantial group of photographers that are doing really, really well in today's marketplace.
So, Joe, how did COVID affect your industry?
It was brutal for the industry. I mean, I was very lucky. I am a little bit entrepreneurial minded since I make most of my money teaching at this point. I do a lot of traveling. I present workshops. I'm sponsored by several companies and a camera brand. I had a very full calendar last year, was actually really excited about the year. I was going to be on the road a lot. I had some really great gigs, a couple keynotes, presentations. And I did an event in Florida the first week in March, came home, and within 3 weeks, my calendar was wiped out for the year.
Yeah, same here.
And so, I had a couple of days of like, oh my God, the world's ending, right? And then kind of got my head out of the sand and said, okay, you can handle this. And what I decided to do, which turned out to be the right thing for me, I went back through all of these various presentations that I've done over like the last 5 years. And I had maybe 20 of them that were essentially sitting there waiting to be used. And I turned them into virtual presentations, but I wasn't happy with the idea of kind of the standard Zoom presentation. I mentioned I'm a bit of a marketing nerd, and you've probably sat through some of these yourself. You attend a lot of these kind of marketing webinars that a lot of the companies, like SaaS solution companies, they'll put on a marketing webinar to sell you on their product. And I'm sorry to say, but most of them are painful. You've got some, office person sitting there staring down at their laptop screen. And, it's like, okay, so I want to show you my slide deck. Wait, give me just a second. Oh no, it's not that one. Hang on. Here it is. This is the right one. Okay. So now on this first, and it's like, oh my God, like, how can you possibly, even like as the CEO of that company, my thought process is, how can you possibly think that's acceptable? Mm-hmm. So I wanted to make my presentations as much like a live in-person presentation as is possible, but doing it virtually. So I literally set up, this kind of little TV studio, if you will, where I am able to do live streams. I'm able to show slide decks, but everything is essentially pre-programmed and queued up. So if I'm doing a presentation, I can just, with a single push of a button, I can switch from having a slide deck next to me to having that full screen, to having me full screen. And I went ahead and I scripted those 20 presentations and taught myself how to properly use a teleprompter and how to present from a teleprompter so that it doesn't sound like I'm reading the teleprompter. And I had a great year. So I was very lucky. Industry in general, it really depended on how, shall we say, creative the given photographers were. I know photographers who unfortunately packed in their business and said, you know what, I'm going to retire early. I know photographers that went to other careers. And I know photographers that had outstanding years because they hustled and, they came up with new ideas, especially a few portrait photographers that I know that did a high-end portraiture. And of course, that was pretty much not doable. Yeah. But they immediately pivoted and said, well, where are there opportunities? And so one of the biggest growing markets for professional photographers is actually product photography, because you can't put something on Amazon without great product shots. And Amazon, of course, is still growing by leaps and bounds in terms of the number of sellers and products. So these photographers went out and started, contracting with companies to do product work, and actually wound up essentially building an entire second business while they were, in the pandemic. So I think the people that were willing to put in the work did great. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they just decided, they didn't have it in them. And I understand that. I mean, obviously, it was a tough time all the way around. But.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm really curious about this, you self-proclaimed marketing geek. What marketing mistake did you make?
All of them.
What's your biggest one?
Probably all of them. I mean, I think, so here, I'll go back to like the beginning where and so we're talking mid 1980s when I left my first full-time photography job, which was that of a newspaper photographer, and said, I'm going to start a business. I was young. I was in my mid-20s. I was married. I had a 2-year-old son. And I literally walked out of this job and said, you know what? I'm going to start a business and I'm going to be a portrait wedding photographer. I had no business plan. I did very little research on how to run a business. I knew how to take a damn good picture. That was it. Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'm good to go. And I hustled and I built a client base, but I failed miserably. I had taken out a loan to buy a computer. I think more because it was cool than actually really needing it. 6 months later, couldn't pay off the loan. The loan manager at my local bank where I had taken the loan showed me an amazing amount of empathy, and literally walked out of my apartment one morning to go shoot a job, and they had my car in a tow truck being repossessed. And this was back in the 80s. So the loan manager actually went. They didn't have like repo guys, right? So he was there, and he said, I'll tell you what, you be in my office tomorrow morning with all of your accounting, all your books, and we'll sit down and we'll talk, and you're going to come back and see me once a month with your accounting until the loan's paid off, which I don't know that a lot of loan officers would do that today. But this man basically, showed me all the things that I hadn't considered about running a business, and even really kind of turned me on to the idea that, and it's something that stuck with me ever since, that if I really wanted to make my business successful, and especially since at the time I was doing portraits and weddings and things like that, I had to realize that my business wasn't about me. And he didn't give it to me as a marketing lesson. He just gave it to me as a piece of business advice. But that set the stage for me to really kind of start this journey behind, I really want to understand marketing, and not even so much marketing in the sense that I'm not a numbers guy with marketing. I'm a psychology guy with marketing. I love the psychology behind marketing. I don't mean gaming people. I mean, just understanding what are the triggers, what are the ways to actually connect to people. And for the sake of the business that I was doing at the time, and even for what I do today, it's how am I going to provide value to someone, and how am I going to make sure that they have a great experience with whatever my interaction is. Because here's the thing about creative people, myself included, I've never met a photographer or another creative that started our creative path, whether it be cameras or whether it be sculpture or painting. I've never met the person that started it because they wanted to make somebody else happy, right? It's actually kind of a very selfish thing. And then we decide.
Is that the marketing mistake, Joe?
I'm sorry?
Is the marketing mistake thinking that it's about you?
Oh, exactly. It was simply as thinking as, hey, I take great pictures, that's what that's what it's all about. And it was realizing that no, it wasn't about me at all. And that, honestly, that one piece of advice has guided me through so much of my career and so much of what I've done and the decisions that I've made. Even when I started working as an educator full time, and being able to build a following and building an audience that I could support myself doing that, because there's certainly no shortage of people that are coaches in today's market or offering classes. And then there's YouTube videos. And of course, all those things, there's no shortage of that in almost any industry. The challenge was, how do you set yourself apart? And knowing that I'm not the best, I'm not the greatest. My challenge is to do the best I can, and to make sure that it's always with a goal of value, and then find the people that I can connect with. I find a lot of people will spend a lot of money in education today, and it's really unfortunate. And it's not the fault of the educators in some cases, but it's generally not the fault of the educator. It's the fault of the consumer. They maybe are going to take on photography as a business. Maybe they're going to start some other entrepreneurial endeavor, and they want to go out and they get a coach, or they're going to take some kind of coaching program, or they're going to spend money on a set of classes, and they ultimately don't gain from it the value that they put into it, both in terms of money and in terms of their time. And the reason I say it's their fault is because what they didn't do is they didn't actually do enough research on the teacher to understand where that teacher's coming from and where their knowledge base is and where their expertise base is. Does it really connect with what they want to do? I mean, it's easy to say, hey, let me show you how to run a photography business. Well, there's probably an infinite number of potential photography businesses, and what works for 10 of them is not going to work for the other 120, right? And so the challenge is being able to make those connections. And so for me, yeah, it's always been just find the right audience, find the right people, and build a business that way. And I've done it when I was shooting, and I've done it now as a teacher.
And what, this is amazing advice. So thank you so much. How
Sure.
can people reach Joe?
You can find me. The best place to start is at my website, which is joeedelman.com. From there, you'll find the links to all my social channels, my YouTube channel, my podcast, which is called the TOGCHAT Photography Podcast, as well as a weekly live stream that I do, which is called The Last Frame Live.
So nice to meet you. Thanks for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.